Right, well here we are with another review from Class 47 P2, and today we are looking at something brand new as ever, and as I do in most of my reviews. However, this model is not just brand new in the sense of it's new to me, but it's also a new release, because this model was only released this year. I think it was August it came out, I'm not 100% sure, but it is definitely a new release. Excuse my slight cough there. It's made by Hornby, as you can see by the logo on the box there, so there's no prizes for that, but there's no prizes to guessing what type of locomotive that we are looking at today. Obviously it's a steamer, and it is, well, it's one of the most highly anticipated models of the year, which the year we are currently in is 2014, and it is the Gresley LNER P2. Now this model has been out for a while. I didn't get it before straight away when it first came out, because I wanted other things first before I got hold of a P2. However, when I tried to get hold of one before, it wasn't very easy. It was difficult. There are three versions you can get this P2 in. There's the railroad version, which is the less detailed one. There's the TTS sound version, which is, well, it's the one with TTS sound, which is basically DCC. Then there's this one, which is the main range version, which, just like the TTS sound one, it has the enhanced delivery, but this one, unlike the TTS sound version, has etched metal nameplates with the model, as you can see there. Now, it's not rare for Hornby to have etched metal nameplates with the models, but they don't do it very often. They did have etched metal nameplates with their Class 67s, the Great Gathering and Great Goodbye A4s, and even their Duke of Gloucester Special Edition model had etched metal nameplates. It would be nice if they did it more often, but oh well, beggars can't be choosers. But the main range version seems to be the one that's more scarce to get hold of, because I did see someone selling 3 of these on eBay, and so I thought, great, I can finally get my hands on one of these. But before I could get one, they were all snatched up, and it's like, damn. And so it took a lot of searching on Google until I finally came along one of these, which was up for sale on the Craven Model Centre website. And so I thought, right, this is my chance, I'll grab it. And the day after I'd ordered this, it was there on my doorstep waiting for it. I didn't order express delivery, but I might as well have done. So there you go. But I think it might be more harder for anyone else to, or others should I say, to get hold of one of these, because when I went back onto the website for nosying, these are now out of stock, so I probably got the last one up for grabs. See, now that was some pot luck there. Now, I have already looked at this model, and in fact I actually already did do a review on this, but after filming I was not happy with the review's outcome, because I felt it rushed. So I've gone back to it to do it again. So, but that, I just had a quick drink there. Now this model comes in the new Hornby packaging, which is the plastic packaging, which I've had before. I had it with the B1 and the Sentinel 4 WDM. I'm not a fan of this packaging, but it's something that we have to get used to because it's here to stay. I prefer the packaging that splits in two though, which is the polystyrene one. I know that packaging is quite infamous because there are many people out there that don't like it because it's quite complicated, but I find it quite interesting. And it is more protective than this plastic packaging, because if you were to drop this from a great height, I doubt very much the plastic would stop the model from taking any damage. That's where the polystyrene has an advantage, but then I wouldn't even want to try dropping this on the floor just to test how strong the packaging is to prevent models from getting damaged, because it's not worth it, I think. But either way, so here's the box sleeve that comes off the box, which is a picture of the model on the front, and at the top you've got a picture on the top of the model there. Not that it's mostly interesting, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. And then on the back, as usual with most Hornby boxes these days, you have brief history on the class and a photograph of the real one. This particular P2 is number 2001 Coco the North, which is the first P2 that was ever built. There were only ever 6 of these engines ever built between 1934 and 1936, and they were all designed by Sir Nigel Gresley, or the Grand Designer as I prefer to call him. And they worked heavy express trains on the Edinburgh to Aberdeen line in Scotland. Now the first 2 were basically identical to this one, because this particular one, as some of you might know, or may recognise, it's similar to the experimental W1 Hush Hush locomotive, which is of course the front, which is it's this part where the smoke deflectors are that make it look like the LNER W1 Hush Hush, basically. And the first 2 looked like that, but all the rest had streamlining. They had the Bugatti nose with the cod's mouth door. Basically it was that on the A4s, so from a distance away they looked like A4s, but they actually weren't, because they had the 282 wheel arrangement. And they were the most powerful steam locomotive apparently in Britain, although, shall we call it the most powerful passenger locomotive? Because you know, you got the 9Fs and the WDs that were all just as strong, even if they were freight engines. So let's just say that this was the most powerful passenger steam locomotive, which I think it's more suitable. However, although they look quite handsome and attractive, they did have their teething troubles. They suffered from large damage to the driving crank axles due to the overheating on the big end bearings, partly due to the stresses at the front end caused by pony truck faults basically. And they also had trouble negotiating around the tight corners because of how long the reel arrangement was, basically. And then after Gresley's death, Thompson came along and had these rebuilt. He rebuilt them into A22 Pacific, so basically they had the Pacific wheel arrangement. We all know what wheel arrangement that is, so I'm not going to bother blubbering on with that. However, they, after being rebuilt, well, there were several of those built. The first 6 of them were rebuilt from these P2s. But when they were rebuilt, they became significantly weaker. So they weren't as strong as these were. Because in reality, when the first one was built, it was test run and it was able to haul 19 coaches. When these were rebuilt, they simply could not haul that much. And so thus they became mixed traffic locomotives. I don't know if any of you have seen the rebuilt P2s in pictures or even videos, but they look more like A1 or A2 Pacifics without the smoke deflectors, basically, so they don't look as attractive as these. None of them survive into preservation, sadly, but there are, well, there's the A1 Trust that are responsible for building Tornado that are building a new one of these, number 2007, Prince of Wales, and they've already got the vast majority of it done. They hope to, in a year's time, to have the chassis as a rolling one. They've built the frames and now they're on to building the drive wheels. I think they've built all the drive wheels now, as they've got them all casted, apparently. Then there's the Doncaster P2 project that are planning to build another P2, but in the streamlined version, basically. Okay, that's more than enough brief history on the P2. So let's put the box away. Then we'll bring the packaging back into shot. And then that's basically the tray for what the plastic box fits into. And then here are the instructions for the P2, the first and only. And so it's basically the usual stuff. Lubrication, fitting the details, the assembly. Close coupling, though I don't recommend you do that, which I'll explain later. Fitting DCC sound if you want, and the body removal. Then on the back, fitting the brake rod. It does say brake rods, but in this case you just get the one brake rod to fit, which goes under the Loco. So put the instructions to one side. Then we'll just take off the plastic cover. I know people say that the polystyrene packaging that splits in two is complicated, but you know, so is this one, to be honest. Okay, so here we have some details. So first of all we get the detail parts, which is the stuff we've seen before. You get a brake rod in there, Those are cab doors, I believe. Yep, they're cab doors, definitely. You get footsteps for the locomotive. That's the footplate for the crew to stand on. You get a coupling in there for the front if you want to use that, and a brake pipe for the front, and drain cocks. So it's all there, so I'll put that to one side to add on later. And then here, you get the etched metal nameplates. Look at that. And I shall put them on later. Although it says on here, attach headboards using blue tack. Right, well, first of all, it's not a headboard. They are nameplates. That's the proper term for them, because there's a name on them. And there's two of them. I suppose you could call them headboards, but they're called headboards because basically they are fitted on the front of the locomotive. That's what's called headboard. These are put on the side of the locomotive, so it's not a headboard. They are properly known as nameplates. I think what they've done here is just used one of those sealed bags that you get with some of those limited edition train sets that put those little headboards in, that show you the famous named trains like the Cunard or the Flying Scotsman or whatever. And also it says attach them using blue tack. Well, blue tack isn't very ideal for sticking these on. You could use it if you want to, but you know, it's not very suitable. Glue is much better. I recommend PVA, because one, if you get the glue on the locomotive, you can't damage it, you can just wipe it off. With super glue, I find you just have seconds to put them on, because the glue dries that quick. And if you get the nameplate stuck to your finger, you have a little etched nameplate stuck to your finger then, and you have to pull it off. Plus, with polycement and super glue, there's a chance of that you could damage the model, if you get it on the model, of course. But then also, I'm not sure if polycement is that very suitable, because it's brass glued onto plastic. Polycement is much better for, well, basically plastic and plastic, because polycement melts the plastic so it forms into one. But either way, we'll put the etched nameplates to one side. Then we'll just take off the top flap, if we can just do that. And then you got to lift it out together, loco and tender, because it's connected. So they've done a Batman, because Batman usually do that as well. Although Hornby have started doing that recently as well. Okay, well, one thing I should point out is that the tender and the loco are connected together. So it's going to make reviewing the locomotive. I'll just get this piece of foam out here from in between the cab. If it wants to come out, that is. So yeah, if the loco is already connected to the tender, it makes holding the model a bit harder. Plus, I find it helps to disconnect the tender from the loco, because you can get at the detail easier. So I'll do just that. Right, so I thought I'd film disconnecting the tender from the loco, and it's actually simple. I was expecting the wire plug socket, but no. In this case you get, well, a tender coupling similar to that on the railroad model. So I think what they've done is to keep the cost down, they've used the tender connector on the railroad models, which is fine because it's easier to disconnect. What you do, you get a flathead screwdriver, and all you do is take off the screw from here, which is easy to undo, thankfully. You take the screw out, and, well, that's it basically. It's as simple as that. Done it in seconds. Okay. So now that the loco is disconnected from the tender, we can now have a look at the model in detail. So, where do we start? Well, we will start with the locomotive first, and we'll save the tender till last, I think. Wow, look at this. Just look at how stunning this model is. I mean, I haven't actually spoke about its detail yet, but already, even when you just look at the model like this, you can already tell how stunning this model is, and you can already see it as well with your own eyes. And bear in mind, this is a model that people have, I'll just set the tender out of the way, this is a model that people have been crying out for a long time on the market. And so now that we've finally got one, well, she's brilliant. Well, where do we start? We've got to start somewhere. Well, I'll tell you where we can start, it's the weight. She's quite heavy, very heavy, which is good, because without the weight, she would not be able to pull anything. So it's good that the weight is there. The front of the locomotive, well, you can see there's the pony truck. You could call it a bogie, but it's basically a pony truck. Now, I have had problems with this because it seems to be light, and so it derails on the bend. At least one of them. So we'll have to sort that problem out, just after I've reviewed it in detail. Here are the cylinders. Now the cylinder heads are painted silver, which is nice. There's a few rivets on them and there's some nice lining. Just look at the link motion and the valve gear. Look at that. I can't wait to see all that move. And just look at the wheels as well. They're painted apple green, but there is lining around the trims of the wheels, and there's even lining on the inside. And that just makes the model stand out. Then there's the rear pony truck under the cab. You've got some rivets on there, a spring and an axle box, and there's even lining around it as well. Now the back wheel here, it's a flangeless wheel. It's a floating wheel basically. Now interestingly, you do not get a flanged wheel to put on the model, but the flanged wheel is only there for if the model is on static display, because you will find if you do put it in on the models that it will derail. And I know that because I've done that before and I've had my problems with it. It might work to start off, but then it has problems later on. So it doesn't matter if the corners are corners. It doesn't matter if the bends are gentle or tight. It will still cause problems basically. So that's a no. Then there's the front of the locomotive. If we can just get to that. As you can see, you've got the chime whistle at the top there, which is accurate like on the real thing. You've got a handrail at the top there, the boiler bands which are painted silver, and a lamp on at the top, and the smoke box door handles. It's basically got a smoke box door like the A3 Pacifics. Then you've got lamp irons on the running board there as well at the front. Oh, there's a slight cobweb there on the model. Sorry about that, that's the boiler. There's a little hook there at the front to slot a chain link coupling on if you wanted. That little hole is for the buffer beam. Sorry. The brake pipe to go into the buffer beam. Well, I wish that dog would shut up. Now, the buffers at the front, they're not sprung. They are plastic. But they are painted silver. So, credit where it's due. At least they do look detailed. And then at the front there, that's the little socket to fit the NEM coupling in. If you want to fit it in, that is. Now the handrails, they are etched. And they are painted silver as well. And I just love that because it makes the model stand out. And it's not just the handrail that goes down the side of the boiler. It's this one here. And the ones on the cab. And that is just stunning. The livery, it's accurate. The LNER apple green is spot on. There's some nice detail on the smoke deflectors, as you can see. These are the printed nameplates. I will put the etched ones on, and I might show that in this video actually. There's some rivets on the boiler, and just look at the stripes that go on the boiler, and around the smoke deflectors. You know, that is just really nice. You've got some detail here that even has lining around that. You've got the number 2001 or 2001 if you want to say that, and they've got the embossed and the correct numerals spot on basically. Then there's a builder's plate which says Doncaster, so it was built in Doncaster. There is some rivets on the cab there. There's glazing in the cab windows too, with lining around them. You've got the safety valves at the top of the cab with rivets, and air vents that do not open, but they are left open, but it still looks nice anyway. So there's some credit there. There's even some piping along the boiler, which is, well, it looks like it's painted gold. Yeah, it's painted gold, definitely. It was hard to tell then, which it is a bit, but it is gold. But you have to look really close though to notice that. Then here you got some more detailing here, which is nice. Is that some sort of air tank? I'm not sure, but it's there. And that's detailed and got lining on it, so that looks really nice. Then if we look at the cab, now the detailing is not painted, but it's there. So that's something to be thankful for, but then even so you can paint it yourself. And as I've yet to do a how-to video on how to paint the cab details, I will do that, and I will use this locomotive in that video, so keep an eye out for that. There's some rivets on this part of the beam, which basically is the rear beam basically for the tender. Then on here you got more etched handrails, separately put on in metal. Another printed nameplate, of course, more piping and rivets. And I like how this piping here has this bit painted silver, which is nice. And again, there's more detail on the smoke deflectors, and even the running board is nicely detailed as well. And there are some rivets on it, not much, but there are there. Wow, what a model. So now we'll look at the tender. Now, somewhat interestingly, there feels like there's no weight in this tender at all. It feels as light as a feather. There might be some weight in this, it could be an optical illusion because the model is heavy. It might be one of those things where it feels like there's no weight in here. But even so, I bet if I put this down on the scales, it'll probably read 1 gram or 1 ounce. Or something, pardon. But it feels like there's no weight in here at all. I would have expected, tenders that don't need to be too heavy, but then they don't need to be too light. So I would have thought that I would put some weight in here. But I suppose you could do that yourself if you wanted to. I'm sure there is some weight in here, but it just feels like there's none in here at all. As you can see, that's that drawbar for the tender. I don't recommend you use the closed coupling because, one, it will cause problems going around corners. I had that when I first ran it. And also, since you've got to put on... Do excuse the dog barking, I can't really do much about that. That's the neighbour's dog. That part of the footplate has to be glued onto that part of the cabin, so I'll probably do that first actually before I even connect the tender. So that's why I don't really recommend you do the close coupling anyway. The faceplate of the tender is nice, there's some coal in the chute. Storage cabinets and handles, which basically transfer the water from the tender to the boiler. Then there's the frame of the tender that's got rivets on it. There's some steps there as well. Axle boxes and springs. Then there's a brake rod there as well, as you can see, which is already attached. The wheels are nice green as well, and they are free flowing, of course. Just as you want them to be, of course. The coupling is nice and slim, and it has the dovetail connector. There's a brake pipe already added on the back. The buffers are not sprung on the tender like they were on the front, but they are painted silver. And there's some more metal handrails at the back there, painted silver. You've got a lamp irons there as well. And you've got these here, which are some form of steps so the crew can climb up onto the water filler cap there. And there's even lining on the back of the tender, just look at that. That looks really nice. Then there's the water filler cap itself, which is nicely detailed. And the coal, now the coal in the tender sadly is not removable, which is a bit of a shame, to be honest. It's still nice that the coal looks authentic, but it just means that if you wanted to add your own coal load, you'd have to very finely crush up real coal and scatter it on the top, but then you wouldn't want it too high either. So while it is a bit of a disappointment that there's no removable coal here, it is nice enough that they have given us a colo that actually does look authentic. So we can't complain too much, I suppose. There's more metal handrails there. Again, the apple green livery, it's spot on. The lining is correct. And the LNER lettering, just look at that. The embossed is accurate, and it's also superb. You know, compared to the railroad ones they use, you know, look at the Railroad Flying Scotsman. It's not entirely accurate, but then the railroad range is budget. But you know, the lettering, it's spot on. And that just looks really stunning. Wow, what a model. This is a cracking model. You're on yourself to a winner here, Hornby, if you're watching. So, all that's left to do now, well, what is left to do, we've got to stick on the nameplates, add on the footplate, connect the tender back to the Loco, and then we've got to sort out the pony truck problem. I think what the problem is, it's too light, so it might need a bit of weight on it. But we'll see. We'll have to find that out. Right, so first we're going to stick on this footplate, and we're going to use poly cement for that. Now this is plastic, but credit where it's due, I've got some rivets on it. So, on the cab when you come to gluing it on, if you look carefully, there are two holes there, as you can see. So what you want a very small amount of poly cement on these clips or pegs, whatever you want to call them. And make sure you glue it up that way up. And then you might just slots into place, look at that. Job's a good one. I will stick the other details on actually while I'm at it. Might as well. So here's that little brake pipe. Or you might want to call it a vacuum pipe. It's even so. I don't want to use too much poly cement because I need that for the build reviews videos. So there's the brake pipe. The cab doors, we can do those next. And so there are some slots in there, just in the cab. Come on. There's the one. There we go. It's just starting to look even more detailed now. Right, so with all the details now glued in place, including the footsteps and the drain cocks, which I did not show, in that clip I showed you gluing them on because I thought I'd save a bit of time. We are now going to glue on the etched nameplates. So I'll take these scissors and I'll just cut the bag open, because if you tear it, the chances of these flying all over the place are high. And you don't really want to lose these. I'm sure you can get replacements elsewhere from like Fox transfers, but even so you still don't want to lose these. Okay, so there are the nameplates. So, we're now going to get some PVA. Now I should have a cocktail stick or a needle, but for the time being I'm going to use this end of a screw, flat bladed. But the glue can be wiped off easily anyway, so the screw isn't going to be ruined. And all I do is just smear the glue on the back of the nameplate. And then I'll just place it down onto where the printed one is. Now there is some glue that is visible, as you can see. So I'll just quickly get a cotton bud. Right, the glue's now been wiped off, so I'll just turn the P2 around and I'll do the same with the other side. And I've noticed that the camera battery is going low, so I'm going to have to charge it. So to oil it up, I'll just rub on some glue on the sorry about that, I got interrupted. There we go. Okay, so here are the loads, and as you can see the P2 is already on the tracks because she's been running round. And I'm pleased to report that there is now some weight added onto the front pony truck of the P2, so she doesn't derail now going round the bends, which is good. So let's get her running. Usually I do put the models onto the tracks on camera, but for this review I just simply didn't bother. Just look at how smooth that mechanism is. And to prove that she doesn't derail, look at that. Just look at all that link motion moving. I mean, there's no grinding noises from the motor. Smooth running. Just what we want, really. So there she goes over the crossing and through the tunnel, where she will pop out the other end. I know this might not be the fastest speed for a P2, but it's perfect for running speed. There she goes, passing the mineral wagons. The signal box and through the station, where there's crowds of passengers waiting to get on the next train home. Well, they might have to catch a replacement bus service if the next train's late. You will notice one of the seawalls there, it's been what is missing. I'm going to be replacing it because the one I had there was a bit short, and so there was a gap in between. And she's passing the sheds where Fox Hunter and Great Northern are on shed. Now, we did have a problem with Great Northern derailing on that bend over there, but that problem is now sorted, and now she's back and she's running a dream. The footsteps there just under the running board have been removed, but they will be glued back on after. And then for Fox Hunter, you will notice and I've mentioned this on Twitter, that she now has the correct numerals for the cab. She's got the correct running number, like she always did when I first renumbered her, but the style of numerals were incorrect. So I went into Fox Transfers, bought the right transfers, and so I corrected that. And now she looks the part a bit more now. There goes the P2 again. One thing I do have in mind, and it's just a little idea, would anybody like to see Cock of the North double heading with Fox Hunter and Great Northern in separate videos? Do tell me what you think, whether it's Twitter or here, because I'm interested to see what you think. But wow, what a smooth model. So before I couple her up to a train, I'll get some close-up shots of her, as I always do. Right, so now we're going to get Cock of the North pulling this rake of teak couches. Now these are the ones that Hornby have recently used in the railroad range. But what I am thinking of doing in the new year is replacing these, depending on if I can find any for cheap, with the premium teak couches, which are much better in terms of detail and they have interior lighting. So that's an idea for the new year, but if I can find any affordable premium teak couches, then I will replace these with those. But for now, we'll get the P2 pulling these. And another thing with the premium teak couches, the liveries are a bit more accurate, but either way, let's get her running. Oh yes, look at that. And that's only four couches, but she can pull them with ease. Sorry about the jump cut for the camera position there, but one of the teak couches derailed. But even so, she still managed to carry on pulling it. And again, this is not very fast for a P2 or any express engine, but you know, it will do for now. Besides, it might be ideal if any of the couches derail again. So she's gone through the tunnel. And she's passing the mineral wagons at slow speed, so let's get her going a bit faster, shall we? I'll just have to make sure that the couches don't derail. Well, yeah, they've not derailed this time. Oh yes, the eagle-eyed monkey will notice the footplate there, stuck to the side of the water tower. That's from the A3 sandwich. I'm going to glue that back on later. But I've just put that there for the time being so I don't lose it. Looks a bit silly, I know, but what can you do? So what's left to say about the P2 then? Well, I definitely recommend it. If you can get one of the main range ones, that is. Because they are worth getting and they make a great addition to the layout. There isn't really much else to say really. Get one. Because you won't be disappointed. I definitely am not.